Hey everybody, welcome back to another video on the Side Modified YouTube channel. Oof, just looking at my hair in the mirror, it's not looking too good. Well, just ignore that. We got bigger things to tackle. So I don't know if you guys have seen this thing in the background of videos, but I've been waiting to get started on this thing for a long time. And now that we finally got the Corvette done, the Corvette kind of took priority over this. We are now gonna start working on this thing. What you guys are looking at here is a 1995 Toyota 4runner. Now this just ain't no regular 4runner. Hold on. I was testing out the radio and stuff. So this is a special 4runner. This 4runner is built for off-roading. And by off-roading, I mainly mean like rock crawling. I mean, it ain't no $100,000 rock crawler, but I got a real good deal on this thing. And it came with already a 4x4 transmission. Of course, it has no engine in it. You guys know how I roll. No engine. But it did come with this transmission. This is a R150F out of this 1995 4runner. Now this is the last year of the second gen. The reason why I like the second gen is because they're a little more easier to modify versus the third gen. And by that I mean a little cheaper. Because what you could do to these things that's a little harder to do to the third gens is you can straight axle swap them. Now the reason why I bought this specific one is because this already had a straight axle swap from I think it was like Trail Gear or something. Both of these axles are Trail Gear axles. And oh yeah, see it has the TG right there on the diff. So the cool thing about it is it's already got a bunch of cool parts on it. It's already got leaf springs up front. Who knows if the kit was installed correctly. It looks like it was done a long time ago. It's got one of them traction bars back there, leaf springs back there. It's got a locking diff, an electric locking diff. And as you can see, the previous owner off-roaded the shit out of this thing. There's a bunch of freaking clay and stuff up here. I actually drove out to Nevada to buy this thing. This was a Utah truck. And it comes with a bunch of cool things. It comes with this, this little back bumper wheel carrier thing, which I just found out that this right here is an air tank because it has fittings over there, so it's pretty cool. You can put air in this. I don't know how well it's gonna hold it, but it'll probably pump up your tires one time if in an emergency. And it's got freaking nice, I don't know, it's just got nice parts on it all around. It's been sitting for a long time though, so the gas in the tank is bad. But what we're gonna do is we are going to bring this thing back to life. Now this ain't the best looking vehicle out there, but that's okay because we are gonna put, oh snap, see that thing? Because we are gonna put this thing to the test. As you can see, the engine bay is just ready to go. It's got mounts in here for a what is it, a 5VZ FE, which is the third gen motor. This had a third gen motor in it. We are not gonna put a third gen motor in it. Hiding in the corner, this right here is a 2JZ GE non-VVTi out of a Lexus SC300, I believe. Now this, Johnny, this is the distributor motor. So it's got a distributor on it. And guess what these motors are good for? These motors are good for like 500-600 horsepower because they got the same rods as a 2JZ GTE. Now they're a little different because they're a little higher on compression. They have different pistons, but these motors can handle some power. And the reason why I bought this, other than it being cheap, is because it has a rear sump on it. Now, the rear sump alone is probably worth what I paid for this engine. So if the engine's not good, then we're gonna have to figure something else out. But we are going to use this engine to mount in the 4runner. Now, since this engine bay is really small, there's a few things. I mean, I've only seen a few people do this swap that actually have documented it. So a lot of people have to get rid of the condenser and have to put the radiator up here in order to have enough room for the engine. Now, we'll see after we mock up the engine how much room we do or do not have. You know, because there's not a lot of room up here for intercoolers and stuff like that. This already has like this big, huge bumper on it, so it doesn't leave us actually any room for an intercooler unless we put it in plain sight, which I don't really want to do. A lot of people put the intercoolers behind the grill. That means you're gonna have to get rid of AC. I don't know if I want to get rid of AC, so. And then there's other people that are cheap, like me. They keep the transmission in the factory spot, that way they could use their drive shafts and everything like that. And then they just hack out this whole front end, and then the 2JZ sits really far forward. Now, the reason why I got the rear sump is because on full on full compression. I did some reading that sometimes the front sump hits these crossbars, these I don't know, tie rod bars, whatever you call them, and that's not good. So the rear sump hopefully should put the sump somewhere back here, and now you're only at risk of hitting the pumpkin, which is about 3 to 4 inches lower. So I'd rather do that. Now regarding the 4runner already has a few modifications to it. They put this, I think this 3rd gen e-brake in it, which is pretty cool because it had one of them pull twist Johnnies. Now if you're in the rocks and stuff like that and you're using a manual, it's kind of hard to keep pulling that thing on and off. So what you do is you just use your handbrake. That way, you know, you're not rolling backwards as you're trying to crawl. So got that done. I went ahead and pulled this box out to get to the wiring. Here's where you wire the ECU. As you see, I already bought plugs for it. So all I gotta do is figure out what all these wires do, and we're gonna try to wire right up to the 2JZ harness. There's only a few things that you need to wire up anyways. It's not a big deal. So yeah, a little sentimental about this thing. The cool thing is the guy I got it from, looks like he had some kids. He left some drawings that his kids did, and I think that's really cool. So it looks like he went off-roading with his family. That's eventually what I want to do. And there's a feather in here. I want to keep all that stuff in here. It's kind of cool. Let's just go over the stuff we got in the back seat. Kind of a long intro, I just realized. But anyways, we're just gonna keep going. Look what I got here. Big ass turbo. Yeah, so this turbo may not work. We'll see. It's got a internal wastegate, and I already checked it hits the distributor. So either we have to get a different turbo or we have to lob the wastegate off so we can clock the turbo. Got a big ass intercooler. Got a bunch of turbo parts here. Here's a bunch of intercooler piping, couplers, stuff like that. And then in this box right here, we have the motor mounts. Now, I bought these because A, they were cheap, and B, because they almost fit a 2JZ. So I went ahead and got that from a nice guy online, secondhand. And then the transmission's in rough shape, but hopefully it's gonna work, or else we're gonna have to configure everything. So this right here is a bell housing from a company called Akita Motorsports. They're located in, I believe, Arizona. It allows you to bolt your 2JZ or 1JZ to the R150F, the 2nd gen R150F. 3rd gen R150F is different. So this is 2nd gen R150F. You have to buy this bell housing. And then this bell housing basically turns it into a W58. So what you have to do is you just have to buy a W58 clutch. So that's what we got right here, W58 clutch. Now, just a little addition for people that are interested. The 3rd gen R150F actually can utilize the R154 bell housing and clutch. So if you want to handle a little bit more power, the R150F from the 3rd gen is actually pretty much almost equivalent to R154. It's just basically a 4-wheel drive R154. So since this transmission already came with it, it already saved me like, I don't know, $1,500, $2,000. So I went ahead and bought this bell housing, which is like $300, and this clutch was like $200. So I'm in it like $500 to have a 4-wheel drive 2JZ. If this ends up not working, I'm gonna get the 3rd gen R154. The R150F. I'm gonna have to find the R154 bell housing, find the R154 clutch, and that's gonna be fucking three grand. So we're kind of balling on a budget here a little bit, but this is gonna be doing just fine because we do not plan on having a 500 horsepower off-road vehicle. We just don't need it. I'm maybe aiming for maybe, I don't know, 300, 350 maybe at the most. So enough bullshitting. I just wanted to explain everything that I have and all my plans with this vehicle because I've been waiting to do this for so long. So let's get this trans out. Maybe we'll just get fitted in the car. We'll let the air out of the tires, and we'll pull this 2J out, and we'll see if we can get it high enough to hover it in the engine bay, and we'll go from there. We got the trans hung. Basically what I used is a mixture of ratchet straps, jack, motorcycle jack. We got it up there. We were able to get the transmission cross member in. I'm not gonna lie, that was a little bit of a pain too because the transmission's so heavy, but we got it in there. Not really sure what angle we're supposed to be at, but next up we're gonna go ahead and slap on this 2JZ bell housing from Akita Motorsports. Since we're gonna be going JZ now, we're gonna have to figure out this clutch thing because it goes all the way over here, and we don't need it to go all the way over there. We need it to go over here. So we're gonna have to either rebend this line or reflare it, drop it down here, or figure something else out. But so far, so good. We're gonna have to take out all these. Fuck, they might not be 14s, they might be 12s. No, pretty sure they're 14s. We're gonna take this off, slap this new Johnny on there. All right, you guys, with the good news, the bad news. Let's just start with the good news first. Good news is I have a mock-up motor in here. And the bad news is it don't even fit. There's no accessories, there's no radiator, there's no fans. This is the condenser. And we need, I did the math, we need about 7 or 8 inches to be able to fit everything we want to fit in there. And we have ½ inch. So in order to combat that, we need to push the motor back. Now, the reason why I put this whole mock-up motor in here, because this trans is in the factory location on the factory cross member. And depending on how high or low the motor sits, the further you come up, the further the firewall sticks out. But let's just, where the motor sits, I believe the hood will still be able to close, even with all the crap on it. So we're just gonna go ahead and measure it off of this height. So it looks like the engine can go back. You know, it's kind of hard to round off on this because either you hit the firewall or you don't. So we're at about 4½ inches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to modify the transmission cross member and I'm gonna make it slotted. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it between 3 and 5 inches. That way, if we have room, if we can get it close to the firewall as we can, that's gonna be closer to 5 inches. I think 4½ is perfect. 4 would be at least a gap to get your hand back there for some reason. And you know, I think 3 inches will leave too big of a gap. So we need to get as much room up here as possible. Another thing is, this is a 1JZ head. We're not running a 1JZ head, we're running a 2JZ head. So it's not really gonna matter because this is a 2JZ block, so the head's really not gonna sit any higher or lower. But the intake manifold will be different. Now the 2JZ manifold that comes on the motor, I don't believe we're gonna be using either. We might use it for the first startup, and just to make sure the car runs and drives good. But after that, we're gonna put one of them side Johnnies on there, some cheap eBay one. We'll kind of get that figured out with, like, you know, the cheap eBay ones with a 90mm throttle body. And it looks like this head sticks a little bit further past the bell housing. On the 1J head, it's about flush, so we need to account for that too. But I want this as close to the firewall as possible. That's why we're gonna make it slotted. That way we don't run into any issues. We know it's gonna fit no matter what. So I've been working on this, I don't wanna call it a transmission relocation bracket or something like that, but it all started off with a piece of 3/16" steel that I went ahead and pretty much just chopped up, put some holes in it, slotted it, did some stuff like that. So let me show you what I got. Here's my idea with this. This is not my permanent rendition of this piece right here. But all I know is, with the research we have done with our test fit, it looks like we need to move the engine back around 4 inches. I would have liked to go more, but it might be less. So what I did, I made it slotted so I can go back. The front of the slot's 3 inches and the back of the slot's 5 inches. So that's gonna be that. And then we got these 4 bolt holes right here, so we could bolt it to the stock cross member like that. We're gonna see if it works. We're gonna slide the transmission as far back as we can. We're gonna take our actual engine, we're gonna throw our actual engine in the car. We're gonna take the turbo off, the manifold off, the wiring harness off, just so we don't have a problem. We're gonna make sure that the rear sump clears. We're basically gonna get everything mounted, and then we're gonna see if the drive shaft clears. So we're gonna throw it in, and then we're gonna make sure that this thing is strong enough. Now, I also plan on welding something here and putting like little standoffs to come out. So I might do that as well. I just want to make sure that this is going to work. If it's going to work, I'll spend more time on it. So let's get this cross member in. Let's get the transmission moved back, and let's get that engine hanging in the bay. I'm excited for this. I hope this all works out. Okay, so the first goal was to get the engine in the car to see if anything hits. Now, looks like over here on the hot side of the turbo side, we're looking pretty good. Looks like we're gonna have room for, you know, future AC lines and stuff like that. The manifold has no problem with clearance. The turbo's probably gonna be the high point on this motor. As you can see, here's where the lowest part of the hood kind of slopes in. So this is going to be the high point. Probably gonna have to use a different turbo because this turbo didn't really end up working out. As you can see, it has this internal wastegate right here, but I had to disconnect it because the outlet would have been over here where the distributor is, and we can't do that unless either we get rid of the distributor, which means that we have to put a different oil pump and a different head on it, or we keep the distributor for our crank and cam signal and we either get a different turbo, or we just lop this off, weld this closed, and then put an external gate on it. This manifold does have a revision for an external gate on it, so we can always do that as well. As for the engine, I think it needs to go a tiny bit lower. I got the ratchet strap trying to set it at the proper angle so I can mate it up with a trans. So only problem is the mounts that are on the engine now are hitting, so I have to take them off. But now I know the engine fits, and it's almost to the firewall, tucking right in there with the trans. Look at all the room we got up here. Not all the room, but it looks like we could fit a radiator on there. We're gonna have to do the whole pusher fan style, which is okay with me. It looks like we're barely gonna have enough room, but it looks like we're gonna go back another ½ an inch, and we still have a little bit of room. I got a radiator we're gonna mock up in a second. I'm just gonna start unbolting things. I'm gonna take the turbo off. I'm gonna take the exhaust manifold off. That way I can get to that motor mount. We're gonna take that motor mount off. And then over here, I already took off half of the intake. I'm probably just gonna take off the rest of it, and we'll get to that motor mount. We're gonna have to take that motor mount off. But here's our issue. This box for the winch, it's in the way, so we're gonna have to move it. Where we're gonna move it, I don't know, because I would like to keep this. This is for the coolant, a whole lot of that. And it looks like the wiring is not really long enough to put it anywhere else unless we rewire the whole thing. Maybe, just maybe, we could take it, maybe squeeze it over here, put it on its side for now, just to get out of the way. Or we can reconfigure the battery box, put the battery long ways, and then put the closer. I don't know. Depends on what type of intake we're gonna do. If we end up doing one of them side Johnnies, we're gonna need all this room over here. But I want to get the engine in here and centered and everything, and then we'll start worrying about what's gonna fit and what's not gonna fit. Well, made a little bit more progress. We actually got the engine officially mated to the transmission. No clutch or anything in there, but we stuck a couple bolts in there. And dude, we are like a ½ inch off the firewall. Nothing's hitting. The closest thing to hitting is the bell housing to trans tunnel, or this coolant return line to the water pump. It's just about hitting, but I think that's where it kind of wants to live. It kind of tucks right in there in that little pocket, and look how much room we have up here. Way more than I figured. We could probably do a thin radiator and a fan shroud, or we could do a thicker radiator and still do a pusher up front. I think that's the kind of route we're gonna go. There is a radiator that bolts right in here that kind of works with the 2JZ. I believe it's off of the Hilux Surf, something like that. It's a JDM radiator. I think I don't know, I gotta do some more research on that. But the way these radiators work is they bolt up like this to the freaking to like the core support style, And that's kind of where it kind of wants to sit. So as long as our radiator doesn't interfere with our steering box, since this is solid axle swapped, then I think we're gonna have to do that, because a regular i300 radiator wasn't even close to fitting. It wasn't even close. As for the inside, we're way off on the shifter. So here's the original shifter hole. There's supposed to be one right here, and then the 4-wheel drive shifter right here. The regular shifter's right here, and let's see. Ooh, the transmission vent's almost hitting. And then the 4-wheel drive shifter is, let me see if I can feel it. Oh yeah, it's right here. So we're gonna have to cut out a freaking ton of real estate here. That's no big deal. We're still gonna be able to use this. It doesn't look like we're gonna have to cut into the center console. Depending on where it wants to sit, it's not even bolted in. So we should be good there. I'm thinking this is where she wants to sit. She might even want to go a tiny bit lower, but I have it pushed as far back as I feel comfortable. See, the valve covers tuck right into this tiny little divot in the firewall. We still got some play. It looks like I'm barely going to be able to get the valve covers off if I need to while the engine's in the car, so that's good. We could push it a little bit further back, but then we're kind of playing with fire here. And let me show you our slotted transmission Johnny. So on our slots, it looks like we are pushed back almost, no, not as far as it can go. So I made this forward is 3 inches pushed back more than stock, and all the way backwards is 5 inches pushed back. So if you look in conjunction with the washers, so we're further than 3 inches, but we're less than 5 inches, and we're more than 4 inches because it's not, you can't see the holes even on each side. So I would say more than stock, this is probably pushed back about 4 1/4, 4.5 inches from stock. And that leaves us a little bit of question with our drive shaft. You see these are fuel lines coming out of the fuel tank, and I know once our drive shaft comes out, it's gonna drop down immediately and take off towards the pumpkin. But if something happens to shift or anything like that, our drive shaft is gonna for sure rub on these fuel lines, and that could be really bad. So that's a potential issue. And then up here, since we're pushed so far back, we have another potential issue. Let me see if I can squeeze you in here. So here's the cross member, right? It's in the stock spot. Here's our 4-wheel drive shaft. Same thing, right? The pumpkin's lower. So if you twist around, the pumpkin's down here. So as soon as the drive shaft comes off of here, it's gonna drop. That means it's gonna hit here. And you gotta remember, that's just stationary. What about full droop? Full droop, this thing's gonna come down another couple inches. Definitely gonna hit here. So we're gonna have to figure something out with the cross member. The reason why I built this is because I wanted to see if this motor is even gonna fit in here nicely. And the answer is yes, yes it is. But we're either gonna have to remake this cross member, or we're gonna have to do some serious clearancing right here. I'm gonna do a little bit more kind of fitment and development, some R&D, and then we'll get back with you guys. I'm gonna pull the motor mounts off, see what I have to do to get these aftermarket motor mounts I have to work. So yeah, we're gonna try to get this thing mounted. Well, that's pretty much gonna wrap it up for this video. We got a lot done in this video, so things are changing on this build drastically quick. This is all new territory to me, obviously. You know, even the 2J is new to me. I've never messed with the non-BBTI 2J, so this is gonna be a fun build, and I think it's gonna be pretty rewarding. You know, it's gonna be different. It's not a drift car, you know, it's a rock crawler. This build is actually gonna be happening pretty quick because I set nearly impossible deadlines, but we're gonna try our best, so we'll see what happens. Anyways, I wanna thank you guys for watching. This is I300 Garza, Slightly Modified. I'm out.